Hello and welcome from Budapest. This is Hungary Reports from Public Media M1, bringing you the latest news in English from Hungary and the Carpathian Basin. I'm Árpád Szőci. Thanks for tuning in. The coronavirus has taken another turn, at least from the Hungarian point of view. There are 3 Hungarian employees of the cruise ship that has been placed under quarantine off the coast of Japan. Besides those 3, the Hungarian Foreign Ministry knows of a Hungarian citizen showing signs in the Philippines and another who is ill in Vietnam. Both are being treated. As for Hungarians at home who have been tested, medical authorities are still waiting for lab results.
Boats of the Japanese Coast Guard approached the ocean liner this morning, just some kilometers off the coast of Yokohama. The ocean liner lingers there, about 45 kilometers from Tokyo, with about 4,000 passengers on board. An 80-year-old man was first diagnosed with the coronavirus, causing pneumonia. According to current data, 10 passengers have been infected with the coronavirus. These victims range in age between 50 and 80, and none of them have serious symptoms. The ship will be quarantined for 2 weeks. No one will be allowed to leave it, nor will the vessel get a permit to dock at port during that time. There are passengers and employees from 56 different countries on the cruise ship. There are 3 Hungarian employees on the ship, but they are not among the infected. This was pointed out by the State Secretary for Communication. Tamás Mencer added, they will do everything in order to get in touch with these Hungarians. He also pointed out that currently there are 2 Hungarians abroad being examined on suspicion of having the virus. We have information about a Hungarian citizen who is being examined in the Philippines. Earlier, he had a fever. Now that's over and he's fine. So we're waiting for the final result of his test for the coronavirus. And of course, we're also urging this. And we know about another Hungarian who is being examined in Vietnam. He does have a fever. Further examinations and tests are underway, Tamás Mencer said. Until now, no one has been diagnosed with the coronavirus in Hungary. Those Hungarians who were brought back from Wuhan arrived home on Sunday. They will remain quarantined for another 11 days in a separate building of the South Pest Hospital Center.
At a closed government committee session, experts gave their accounts of what happened last week and why when migrants broke through the Hungarian border defense in the south of the country at Röszke. About 60 young men succeeded in passing through this former border crossing. They were quickly stopped and turned back after Hungarian authorities fired warning shots. A number were also arrested. The president of the government committee, Lajos Kósa, said that it's obvious that it was a coordinated attempt, which would then send a message that you can get across this way. Authorities fear that migrants will try something similar in the future. So far, there have been more than 4,000 attempts by migrants to cross over into Hungary illegally this year. More than 36,375 million euros were spent in retail last year, setting a new record in Hungary. That's partly because of the government's family support policies, as well as general pay increases. And this year, analysts expect similar economic successes.
This shoe store in Békéscsaba is very popular with shoppers. Since the beginning of the year, sales in stores in general have been strong. But most shoppers visited and purchased items in stores during the last month of the year. Tech and clothing stores' revenue have grown by almost 9%. According to the Central Statistical Office, Hungarians also spent more on food and drinks. Sales in the last month of the year were about 5% higher than earlier that year. Fuel sales were up 2.5% last December compared to 2018. According to the analysis of the Statistical Office, retail sales amounted to 1,250 billion forints, or 3.7 billion euros in the last month of the year, and Hungarians spent more than 1,000 billion forints, or 2.9 billion euros a month over the rest of the year as well. That means 6.7% more commerce than expected in December of 2019. The rate of growth was about 6% in the last 4 months of the year. This means strong consumer confidence, with families doing a lot more spending. And this growth will give a boost to 2020, said the trade union chairman. According to analysis, trade sales could continue to grow this year, which already surpassed 12,000 billion forints, or well over 35 billion euros in 2019.
A new impetus is required for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict so that the Middle Eastern peace process can get renewed strength. That's what Hungary's Foreign Affairs and Trade Minister said in Washington. Híradó pointed out that the American peace plan presented last week is suitable for creating peace and stability in the region in the long term, and that it corresponds to Hungary's principles.
A respectful, balanced approach has to be used with Israel. That's how Hungary also deals in international organizations. We don't support embargoes against Israeli companies. We don't support pressure from European institutions and several large European Union member states to represent an anti-Israeli viewpoint at the United Nations, and that they neither support those UN resolutions that would effectively reduce the tension because of the criticism Israel has been subjected to.
At least one American guard at the U.S.-Mexico border knows about Hungary's southern border defense. He told a correspondent for Hungarian public media's M1 TV news station that he has seen pictures of the Hungarian border defense and heard that it works. Hungarian government spokesperson Zoltán Kovács pointed out that, as in the case of the American defensive wall, it goes without saying that a country has to defend its borders.
This is how much remains of the first defensive line built 30 years ago. Everyone who wanted could easily get through this rusted-out fence with holes in it. Construction here is coming to an end, and a higher and more modern steel fence is built, which will provide a firm defensive line in the coming decades. The State Secretary for International Communication and Relations had gained an insight into the American initiative on site. Zoltán Kovács pointed out on public media's M1 News that in the United States this kind of border control is not an emotional issue, but rather a political one, whereas in Europe this seems to have been forgotten. The European Union has borders with special regard to the Schengen borders. The debates we've had in the past 5 years on the crossing of borders and on whether or not it is necessary to use physical force or build a fence against illegal migration do not even arise in this country, or at least on this section of the border, as they are considered self-explanatory. Our task is to fulfill our duty and protect the borders of Europe, the Schengen border, without asking questions, since this is not an emotional or a political question, but rather a legal one. The borders have to be protected, that's why they exist, and those who cross them have to obey the rules, Zoltán Kovács said. A new wall or fence has been built on a 160-kilometer-long section of the altogether 3,300-kilometer-long border separating the United States and Mexico, and works could be completed on another 700 kilometers by the end of this year.
An organization promoting the official recognition of national minorities in Europe has handed in its recommendations to the European Commission. The Federal Union of European Nationalities has put together its Minority Safe Pact report, which more than 1.25 million Europeans have signed. The 76-page document asks the European Union to improve the protection of persons belonging to national and linguistic minorities and strengthen cultural and linguistic diversity. To date, there is no official protection of national minorities in the European Union. It's left to individual countries, often at the expense of national minorities. There are 100 million people in Europe who belong to national minorities, and about half of them live in the EU.
It's unprecedented in the annals of the initiatives that with such a well-prepared document based on solid expertise. I believe that the European Commission will react to this. They'll first formulate questions in writing, and then I'm sure that with today's meeting, a true dialogue has started.
An annual poetry marathon takes place on April 8th this year at the Petőfi Literary Museum in the Hungarian capital. For 12 hours straight, poets will read their poems. That's always an experience in itself, while for poetry lovers and students of the genre, it's also an opportunity for them to get to meet the poets themselves. The Miskolc Zoo and Cultural Park has about 700 animals from more than 120 species originating from 5 continents. The zoo is actually in a hornbeam oak forest connected to Bükk National Park. While walking through the zoo, you can check out the many animals indigenous to the Carpathian Basin. And there are also more exotic animals, as well as those species that were brought into the region by the original Magyar settlers. The selection is vast, from Siberian tigers to brown bears. And stay tuned to see when feeding times are going on, always a favorite with the visitors. And when in Veszprém, just north of Lake Balaton, you might want to check out the Buccaneer House, which offers one of Hungary's earliest open-air ethnographic exhibitions. Back in 1935, a replica of a small gentry family house was built there thanks to donations. The original building was in the community of Öcs. A permanent exhibition at the house shows the life of farmers and gentry in this region and the everyday things they used. Open all week and all year except Mondays. And that's all for now. But you can see Hungary reports in repeats and on the internet. And we're back live after the next Hungarian news program at 11:20 p.m. Central European Time. Please stay tuned now, if you can, for our shows in German, Russian, and Chinese. Thanks very much for watching, and viszontlátásra.